Hey guys, so even if you haven't watched the show before, I think you're familiar with that one episode, which we will indeed be talking about, and a bunch of other stuff about Nurse Bendy's backstory, which is very adulty, for lack of a better word, to steal from her. So trigger warning is in effect, and as always, I will include a hotline in case you or someone you know is experiencing adult things when they don't want to or they didn't ask for it and they need help. Contact the number for RAINN. Their website has numbers for street support, crisis support, missing people, human trafficking victims, and all that good stuff. And their services come in both English and Spanish. Thank you, and on with the video.
The M for now, while we eat. Signed, My Family. Wow. My eye is really sweating up a storm here.
Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about, 30 seconds have passed, Moral Orel. Or more specifically, one of their most tragic yet uplifting characters, if not their most tragic and uplifting, Nurse Bendy. Is it bad I just got the point of her name? I heard a reason a lot of characters in the show have names the way they do is because they're stop motion, which they even reference in Dumb.
That was Sad Violin Music number 7 by Ludwig von Stop Motion Animation Name.
Like, Blaberta got her name because blobs of clay. I thought she was called Nurse Bendy because she bends over for people, if you catch my drift, but maybe it's because you also bend clay, or maybe I'm looking too deeply into this and making this intro too long as is. Now, every sadcom show has that one character who isn't a main character, but who has a crybaby backstory that makes them an instant hit with the fans, to the point where even if you don't watch the show, you probably know this one character. BoJack Horseman had Sarah Lynn, who I will refer back to, hell of a boss, even if it isn't a sadcom per se, but is influenced by sadcoms, has Fizz Raleigh, Rick and Morty has Evil Morty, and Moral Orel has Nurse Bendy. So let's discuss. Nurse Nursula Bendy, as her name implies, is the town nurse of Moralton, and since the town itself is quite small, she's on double duty, oh god I hate that word, working both at the school and at the hospital. Nurse Bendy is a phrase I try not to use quite often. The town bicycle. We're kinda like Leanne Cartman, every man wants to be with her for her body and good looks, and nothing else. However, much like a bicycle, there's no real attachment. They simply want to ride her for one thing and one thing only, and after they're done taking her on a trip, well, they've told her it so many times that she's internalized it, and they leave her. And she believes it's just what she's meant to do, even if she's not really that into doing it. Wow, and I thought Lady Danbury had a horrible life. Now, I have no problem if sleeping around is the life you want to live. Hey, marriage and relationships aren't for everyone. But I do think such a life requires the idea of choice and safety, and Nurse Bendy clearly isn't doing this out of choice, or at least, while she is consenting, she's not wholeheartedly consenting. Don't worry, once we get to the episode alone, we'll discuss how much worse off it is. While she does choose, so to speak, well, most men simply see her as stupid and dumb, and only good for that one thing. And the sad part is, like every other religious hypocrisy in the show, they have religion to back themselves up. I mean, how they could not. Now, as Moralton is a religious fundamentalist town, that means they likely believe in the Madonna W complex. I think you know what the W stands for, where women are either one of two things. Either perfect, saintly, good, clean, or you do one wrong thing, or you say one wrong thing and you're automatically a B word or dirty in some way. Kind of like that whole speech from the Barbie movie, where whatever you do, you just can't win. You're either good or bad. There is no middle ground. And strangely, this only applies to women, because boys will be boys. The men of the town can simply say Nurse Bendy led them astray and it's not their fault, and then return to their wives, no consequences. Heck, as we see with Clay and Roberta, it's perfectly fine if men cheat because they're the heads of the household. Their minds have to wander somewhere. Women only have one purpose, and that's to make babies for their husbands. Ew. But because they all view her as an object or a dumb blonde, nobody will give her the time of day, even if what she wants most of all is a husband and a family to take care of. And just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to level with all of you. We're going to talk about some really adult topics. Nurse Bendy is a victim and a survivor. I think you all got that sense, but Nurse Bendy is a victim and a survivor of something that happened to her when she was a child. Yes, like I said at the beginning, it's that kind of a video. That's why I included the trigger warning. They never properly say it in the show since the series got cut down, but they do give little hints here and there which makes the situation a lot worse. In one of the unmade episodes, Nurse Bendy would say she's 24, and since her son is 12, well, do the math. That doesn't paint the best picture implication-wise, does it? Oh, don't worry, it gets worse. We first see this whole song and dance in the episode Repression. For reference, Nurse Bendy's main partner partner, I guess you could say, is Principal Fakey, who, as his name suggests, is the principal of Diorama Elementary, where Nurse Bendy works. One day, his wife, Mrs. Principal Fakey, calls to check on him, but the school secretary says he isn't in. And just for reference, the secretary is going to be important, so I'm going to call the secretary, whose name is Miss Second Opinionson, Sheila, just because of a certain attribute.
He'll be sorry he missed you.
What a day.
I wonder which one, though. Clearly it's the bob cut. Sheila will be important later, just hold off. In truth, Principal Fakey is in a hotel room getting it on with Nurse Bendy.
Oh, I hate myself. I have a loving wife. What am I doing?
Can I get a ride back to school with you?
Now, two things. One, I feel really bad for Nurse Bendy, because when you think about it, she's getting taken advantage of, both by a man who is at least twice her age and her own boss, but who thinks she's too stupid to do anything besides that. Now, it's already iffy if coworkers have relations with each other, but I think a boss sleeping with a coworker, aka one of their underlings, is almost always a form of coercion. These people are authority figures. They are in a position where they can easily take advantage of other people and just say it's because of their job. Since they control your paycheck, so they could say something like, oh, you're not gonna get under the desk with me? Well, I guess your kids aren't gonna eat tonight. What about PC Principal and Strong Woman, kitty? That's different, Catherine. How so? I mean, you did say it was okay in that one video.
I have worked my whole life to be the strongest woman possible. A person little girls could look up to. If those girls thought that I was the type to get knocked up by my boss.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think in that instance, it was okay, even if it's iffy, if only because both knew it was wrong, and they knew it was complicated, but when they knew the feelings they had for each other were genuine, and they likely were able to establish ground rules, then they acted on their feelings. And when Strong Woman said initially she wanted to raise the PC babies on her own, PC Principal was fine with that, if only reluctantly, because as a mother, it's her decision. He just wanted to support her, because he made a mistake, and hey, that's the manly thing to do. Plus, PC Principal is somebody who would never take advantage of women, which is why it's such a big deal he had a crush on Strong Woman in the first place. He's her superior at work. He had to be sure it wasn't just because she was a coworker before he tried anything. Literally, he has his frat brothers sign consent forms before they so much as shake hands with a woman. And when he thought Tweek and Craig were dating, the first thing he did was sit them down and teach them affirmative consent. As in, before you do anything, you have to verbally communicate that with your partner. So yes, it's iffy, but I would root for Strong Woman and PC Principal any day. Plus, the episode does make the point that even if they weren't boss and underling, well, coworker and coworker is still kind of iffy regardless of how you splice it.
They're together!
Who's together?
The principal and the vice principal! They can't be together, they're co-workers.
The situation in Moral Orel is 100% different, and I do not condone it, and neither does the show. Principal Fakey has been established to not be that good of a person on the offset. And considering the ending of this episode, I could buy him firing Nurse Bendy if she were to displease him or refuse him. Or maybe she has refused him and he's still done it, in which case, that's horrible. Plus, he never asks her of her opinion. He simply treats her like a tool he can use as he will. Again, a bicycle. Second, take a look at Nurse Bendy's expressions throughout the whole ordeal, I guess you could say. Well, Principal Fakey is passionate and sweaty and like, oh my god, I love you. Nurse Bendy just sits there and stares at the ceiling practically, bored and disinterested. Almost like this is a chore for her, like brushing your teeth or taking out the trash, where you don't want to do it, but you just have to.
Huh? That's weird.
Hello, my beautiful little angel blossom.
You're an angel blossom.
Oh, and I thought Viserys and Allison was disgusting. Or even this scene here of the aftermath. She isn't like, wow, that was fun, or like actively pretending she liked it, or like, I had a good time. She's just like,
Can I get a ride back to school with you?
in BGW, he never asks yes or no. So yes, he's 100% taking advantage of Nurse Bendy, and he doesn't care because he's getting pleasure out of it. Compare that to, say, PC Principal, where when the town caught him and Strong Woman, the first thing he does wants to be like, oh, she led me on, or something like that. He pulled a sheet over her, that way she'd have some sort of preservation. Again, I think that makes what Nurse Bendy goes through all the more worse. It's happened so much to her that she just feels numb to it. People pity Nurse Bendy for what happened in her past. Well, what about this? This is her present. And don't say she's ruining a marriage so she deserves it. The point is made, she doesn't want to be with Principal Fakey. She just feels like she has to. He just doesn't know what the word no sounds like, and he'll mental gymnastics anything to avoid responsibility. And, okay, for me, while I do think you shouldn't cheat with a married man, it's a little bit different if you don't know he's married. And I doubt she knows or even cares, or it registers to her that he has a wife. However, Principal Fakey feels conflicted, to his credit, considering how he is actively cheating on his own wife with another woman. woman, a younger woman, aka also something that equal employment opportunity should be called about, and he feels bad about it. So much so that he goes to the confessional box to ask Reverend Putty for advice, which Putty implies is a pretty regular occurrence lately.
Come on.
I can't.
Come on.
Reverend, please! I didn't come to the repressional to talk about my sins.
Also, question, do they still have the big, scary confessional boxes? Because when I was forced to make my confirmation, I had to, confess my sins, and they just had a priest and you sitting alone in a chapel together. NQ South Park joke, which arguably felt worse for me because it wasn't anonymous. Do you really think I'm gonna tell him to his face what I did? But notice how Principal Fakey blames Nurse Bendy as the voracious one, when we know damn well that isn't true.
Nurse Bendy again?
It's awful. It's wrong, and I can't stop. She's a tigress.
I'd say more like a kitten. Wow. Reverend Putty advises him to follow the Willow from Owl House way of thinking, aka out of sight, out of mind.
Look, just try not to think about it. Out of sight, out of mind.
That is easy to say.
You can do it. Distract yourself. Give your wife a baby. That'll make you feel like a good husband.
No, he shouldn't. I told you guys. Oh my god. Unless it's American Sniper, which this clearly isn't, it's a stop-motion cartoon. Babies aren't toys, and babies do not fix relationships. They're innocent victims. It's just gonna cause more problems. When Principal Fakey causes more problems because he can't just keep it in his pants, or whatever it was that crazy chick did with Reverend Putty's tissues, and the Fakeys inevitably divorce, he's gonna be harming 2 people rather than just 1. And Principal Fakey is a master of confirmation bias. Really, if he's that upset, what he should be doing is going to his wife, getting down on his knees, like Nurse Bendy did, confessing what he did, saying how sorry he is, breaking it off with Nurse Bendy, and then begging for both of their forgivenesses. Because we see later that Mrs. Principal Fakey was actually still in love with her husband. I really feel like she would forgive him. It was to the point where she was preparing a whole candlelight dinner for the 2 of them, and everything with makeup and a cute little dress. And he just brushed her off to have more weird fantasies about Nurse Bendy.
Be hard to do, you know. That Nurse Bendy sure can dull your ear off.
Always talking about her.
Yeah, how boring she is.
What a jerk! She's right there, dude! Stop looking at the dessert section of the buffet when you should be looking at the seafood section! Literally, in this case. Reverend Putty is tired of listening to him since he's likely done this dozens of times, and Principal Fakey still refuses to listen. So he leaves.
We just closed.
Please, Reverend, I'm at my wit's end.
Plus, as we know from the episode Be Fruitful and Multiply, Putty isn't getting much luck in that department. So he likely views this as Principal Fakey not realizing how good he has it. It's either he's too stupid to realize he has a wife who loves him that he's majorly neglecting, and yet despite that still hasn't gone astray, or he can have his cake and eat it too, while Reverend Putty is lucky to get crumbs. But the advice of pushing his feelings down doesn't work, so he just makes it worse for him and everybody else around him, to the point where Putty wants nothing to do with him anymore. I mean, would you if he's just not gonna listen? To what little tiny bit of credit you can give him, he does try, the keyword here being try, to break things off with Nurse Bendy, who was perfectly cool with it.
What? I mean, great.
Look, this isn't working out. We can't see each other anymore. I know. It kills me, too.
I mean, I just told you. But he backs out at the last second.
God, you drive me crazy. I have to have you now, with my pants on.
Oh god, no. Ew! Orel, who is in church, goes to pick up the slack. But there's a problem. Well, more like a couple. Orel is a child who is being put into a situation, well, more like situationship, that he doesn't understand, both ramification-wise, logic-wise, and story-wise. Really, this is none of his business. And he's also a child. So he goes to his father for advice on how to give Principal Fakey advice. Again, not knowing the full story, and likely just thinking Principal Fakey, tapped Nurse Bendy on the shoulder, or they stole candy, or cookies from the cookie jar or something. And Clay tells him in not so many words that authority figures can't possibly be wrong in what they do because they're authority figures.
Buddy, the conscience is the first thing an authority figure has authority over. Why, he can repress that bothersome little fella in no seconds flat.
I mean, it's not like they're also people with their own thoughts and opinions and problems, and no one is without sin, not even authority figures, by comparing it to the apple from Adam and Eve. If you feel shame, just do what they did when they found out they were naked. Put on clothes and pretend it wasn't there.
Repression is the antidote to the apple.
That makes no sense and it's hurting my brain. And no joke, I wrote this script with a migraine so badly, I actually seriously considered trying to make myself throw up, just to make the pain stop. That's what I'm telling you guys to do it. Do not do it. I'm an authority figure and I try to use this platform for good. I was just that desperate. Wait, actually, the more that I think about it, since I'm recording this when I don't have a headache, I think his advice is to just practice mental gymnastics. Like, pretend the thing that's causing you harm isn't actually causing you harm, while it still actively causes you harm. Basically, the same advice that Reverend Putty gave to Principal Fakey at the beginning, but with a religious illusion attached. That way it can be holy or something like that.
Feeling right. It's like the apple never got bit.
I see. So if it feels like I shouldn't be doing it, I'm not doing it.
Yep.
Orel tells this advice to Principal Fakey, which makes me think that I like to headcanon Orel eventually grew up to replace Reverend Putty as the town priest of Moralton, and it seems to get through to him, where instead of doing it with Nurse Bendy during his lunch hour, he'll just do it during his annual checkup. That way, he has a socially acceptable reason to do it.
Oh, are we supposed to do it today?
If by do it you mean you giving me my annual checkup, then yes.
Only there's a wrinkle. It seems that during his little trysts with Nurse Bendy, he never used protection. Well, I mean, he's Christian. They don't really believe in that. So he basically stuck his hand into the used needle bin and wondered, why do I have blood poisoning?
What? Impossible! How could this happen? My wife is the only woman I've ever been with!
Only because of the advice Orel gave him, he doesn't put two and two together, or he does and just doesn't want to admit it because Apple, and assumes that he got it from his wife.
As faithful as a lapdog. Unless...
Here's a lesson to all of my viewers out there who are cheating on their SOs. I know who you are. Rep your rascal, or get the person you're cheating with to rep their rascal. Also, notice how when he gets angry at Mrs. Principal Fakey, how he calls her a Jezebel.
Jezebel, I give her everything, and this is what she gives me!
Again, another religious illusion, that way he can take all the pain off of him. Remember what I said about Jezebel in the last video? Cool name, but she was a temptress who led King Ahab to his doom. I would love to see the VeggieTales of that. Or how women, especially in Christianity, are either pure or dirty with no in between. I think this episode makes a good case for why that still persists. When that happens, you don't have to admit it's your fault.
Diseased harlot! I trusted you! I was going to give you a baby!
Oh, now you're gonna give her a baby. No, I hate you, Principal Fakey. You're so fake.
Call me fake one more time, I dare you.
Fake. Granted, this is one of the few times where Orel doesn't get sent to the study for what he did, as nobody tells Clay, which makes me wonder if, like, Clay knows about Nurse Bendy or something, or if, like, he approves because of his whole thing with Danielle, and Reverend Putty is happy Mrs. Principal Fakey is back on the market.
Mrs. Principal Fakey's a free agent?
Yeah.
Punch it out here, Orel. I think you can handle this on your own.
But...
Look, you just helped that basket case Fakey. Just do the same to yourself.
Now, they never say what got Nurse Bendy to sleep with Principal Fakey in the first place, but if I had to guess, I feel like it's part of what she said that got her to be with Joe's dad.
Thinking I'm all smart and everything? Well, at least he used to say things like I wasn't dumb and stuff.
The man in question complimented her and made her feel good, even though all those compliments were ultimately empty. So she'd be in a more willing mood to do it with him. Then, once he got what he wanted, he discarded her. At least with Principal Fakey, until he got bored or the guilt started catching up with him. But I'm willing to bet something similar happened here, where he tried to say he was in love with Nurse Bendy, he used all kinds of compliments and names, but she's become so tired of it that they no longer land. And I can't blame her. Heck, him quote-unquote dating Nurse Bendy is such an open secret that Joe even makes fun of him for it in Orel's movie premiere, and nobody bats an eye.
Hey, that actually looks like Principal Fakey, the dumb guy at school. He cheats on his wife with the dumbest girl ever, Nurse Bendy. Ugh.
But finally, we've gotten to the episode Alone. The episode that got Moral Orel canceled. See, unlike most episodes, this is probably like the first to not explicitly focus on Orel or any of his family members, because it's supposed to take place during nature. There's even a part where they say like, hey, Orel's going on his hunting trip.
Oh, Orel, excited about the trip?
You bet! I've been practicing shooting and everything.
Yeah, we noticed.
Instead, it focuses on 3 unmarried women in the town, with the theme of them being victims of a certain kind of exploitation, if you know what I mean. And because of the subject matter, especially Miss Sculptum's segment and how they had a whole plot line that was meant to develop from there like a bloodied coat hanger, well, Adult Swim thought the show was too bleak and candid. However, this episode got many people to rethink Nurse Bendy as a tragic figure, this is how she became popular. And I agree with the sentiment wholeheartedly. Seriously, she is 100% a tragedy. Nurse Bendy comes home to her apartment, which for the record is called the Aloneford Apartment for Spinsters. And it seems dreary and bleak, like one of those retirement homes you just stick your grandparents in just to forget about them. I only point it out because it's contrasted with the next door building of Bachelor Arms, which is awesome sauce, colorful, has all these balconies, it's cool, almost as if they're trying to make a statement. Nurse Bendy is ostracized for her inability to get married, to the point where she has to live in a house that's stigmatized, but those other men? They probably have their reasons. Nurse Bendy walks to her apartment, and on the way there, passes two kids who just ignore her, which brings her down. Almost like she wants people to treat her like a person, or she also wants kids. She sadly enters her apartment, which is playing a sermon on the radio by Reverend Putty. This time, he's dedicated it to the ladies, who, to quote him,
"Stay home and take care of things for the male heads of the household."
Christ on a stick, Reverend Putty. Stop summarizing the episode's themes for me, dude. That's my job. I already talked about Jezebel, so I can't possibly repeat myself. I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. Oh, and he makes this point.
But even though your current duties may be a little on the trivial side, at least most of you finally carried out your most important duty and gave birth to your husband's offspring.
Would it be repeating myself if I brought up the whole object thing metaphor? Because beforehand, I compared Nurse Bendy to an object, that being a bicycle, since everybody rides her. This time, I could compare these other women to incubators, or how their only value is their uteruses. How men only view them for one thing, either for pleasure or for reproduction. And once they get that one thing, well, at least they can continue the family line so Hubby can lord himself over tinier humans. When Nurse Bendy enters her apartment, suddenly her whole demeanor changes. She perks up, she's smiling, and she asks around for somebody named Hubby. Only Hubby isn't a human man like this is her nickname for him. Rather, he's a teddy bear. Oh, and that's not all.
Hubby? There you are. And Sonny. Hi, family. Sorry I'm late.
Just in case you didn't get it, because clearly me saying it a couple of times didn't register with you, Nurse Bendy is a victim and a survivor, and she's been so warped by abuse and being taken advantage of from such a young age that as a coping mechanism, she mentally regresses into a little girl. And to further deal with the emptiness in her life, she pantomimes the family she wishes she had with stuffed animals, with Sonny, the little tiny boy, and Hubby.
We should set a good adult example for our little Sonny here, right, Sonny? Aw, you're so childy.
Her room looks like something a 7-year-old would have, from the posters to the stuffed animals. Heck, the dinner she cooks for her pretend family isn't something huge like meatloaf or chicken, or like stereotypical, like you'd expect for a housewife to do. Instead, it's sandwiches and milk. Like, I guess you could say little girl food.
Food cakes with a side order of eat stew, and then we can wash it all away with some liquid wet drinks. This is gonna be tummy for our yummies.
And I'd imagine being able to cook is a big deal in Morrilton, especially if you're a lady. Women take care of the household, and yeah, a woman who can't cook probably is no woman at all. Explains why I'm not married. Do pizza bagels count as cooking? And yes, this is another hint that Nurse Bendy had something horrible happen to her as a child. Age regression is a symptom, look it up. Notice how she's speaking. Normally, Nurse Bendy talks very slow, almost like a valley girl. Since if people don't think she's a harlot, they probably think she's as dumb as a jar of mayonnaise, and she's internalized that belief. Yet when she's around Hubby and Sonny, even if they aren't alive, she speaks very clearly, but it's undercut with how she's talking, how she uses all of these childlike terms for horrific things, like Principal Fakey bending her over, adult things, or dinner time, swallow time.
I'm starvish too. Well, it is just about swallow time.
Don't say swallow. They are the worst kind of bird. And we see firsthand that she hates Principal Fakey and hates what he makes her do, since even a free day off of work still isn't enough for him. He just sees it as another opportunity, likely because he's bored out of his mind.
Principal Fakey sure has me do a lot of adult things around the office. Even today when there's no school or anything. It's crazy.
And worse yet, he's such a holy man that he insists that Nurse Bendy has to serve him on Good Friday, aka pre-Easter Eve. If you know anything about Christianity, you know that Easter weekend is probably the holiest day or days of the year, like next to Christmas. And Good Friday is supposed to be a day of fasting to some degree. I also want to bring up the dress she's wearing, how modest and matronly it looks, and how she wears her hair up in curlers.
I have a surprise for you. Look, isn't it adulty? I like to think so.
I guess maybe you can argue she's doing this to seem more motherly, the same way a little girl might, or she's home alone, so she doesn't have to, like, try as hard. But part of me wonders if it's part of her coping mechanism. With many victims, they will blame the way they dress on why the event happened. Like, they entice the attacker somehow, which isn't true. You're not asking for it if you dress a certain way or you look a certain way. It's not your fault. But as a nurse, I'd imagine she gets little choice in how she chooses to dress. And I wouldn't be surprised if Principal Fakey or even Dr. Potter's Wheel make her dress like a stereotypical busty nurse, like you'd see on TV or in your fantasy, rather than something more productive like Scrubs. Like, she isn't getting control in her own life, so she's doing it in her home life. There's also something that I didn't realize until I started recording. So when we see Miss Sculptum's segment, we see that she's not wearing any clothes for most of it. And when we see Miss Censordoll's segment, she's just wearing the same clothes she always wears. So I think it's a good contrast. All three are victims, but they have different ways of going about it. Miss Censordoll, because of what happened to her when she was a baby, she has to believe she's holier than thou. Whereas Miss Sculptum, she doesn't know how to deal with her crush, so she just thinks about what could be. But Nurse Bendy, even if she doesn't look it, she doesn't want to set a proper example. I don't know, I should move on, but you get what I mean, right? You'd expect the dress to be something more comfortable, like even like a robe, or even something like, I don't know how to put it one way, I guess maybe like risque. Okay, risque. And she took that literally. Before she eats, she makes a point to say grace, and she asks for the family to be protected and for people to finally realize she's a person, not an object.
Sometimes, along with happy thoughts, or scared or aloneness thoughts, I feel thoughts of emotions, and I need people to know that.
Oh, wow, that's really wow. And even if you don't relate to Nurse Bendy because maybe you aren't a survivor or don't know anybody, I feel like you could relate to the idea of people wanting to see you as more. Especially since everybody thinks of her as stupid, but she's like, I'm still a person even if I am, and people don't know that. Which is something even I feel I struggle with. Only something tragic happens. Nurse Bendy considers her apartment her sacred space, the only place she could be herself. But what if that space wasn't as sacred? Nurse Bendy drops some of the food and tries to remove a stain, in a certain fashion on her hands and knees, and she hits the chair repeatedly that Hubby is sitting on until he falls and hits her a certain way. And in the process, she freaks out, she knocks over a glass of milk that spills onto her face, again in a certain way she's likely very familiar with, and causes her hair to be undone. Again in a way she's probably familiar with, which makes her panic immensely.
Not you! You're special, you care! Not at all!
Wow, just wow. Also, there's no happy ending to this episode. She literally ends it sitting on the floor and sobbing. Now, frequently, I like to compare Nurse Bendy to another tragic character, Sarah Lynn from BoJack. Where much like Nurse Bendy, she had a sad, tragic life only to have an awfully tragic ending. But my main problem with Sarah Lynn was how the fan base and the show after season 3 simply boiled her down to being a tragic victim. Which she is, don't get me wrong, but they do it by ignoring that she was still a person who made a lot of mistakes. Like manipulating BoJack's insecurity about not wanting to be there for her when she was a kid so she can just party nonstop, or telling him she's only sober temporarily in order to have better highs, and that if BoJack wants to party, he should call her up. Just saying, I really hate how the show ignores this statement. Like, cause he even said go get help.
First time you do them again, it's amazing.
What? No, just stay sober.
Ugh, whatever. Call me when you're ready to party.
Or how she only got sober off of drugs, but she was still drinking nonstop even if she was attending AA meetings, and she knew it, which even BoJack called her out on.
Nowhere in the 12 steps does it say to not drink. That's not actually one of the steps. Loophole.
I made a video on the subject, which I'll be honest, I majorly regret because I did not explain anything well enough, and it was more like I just had one problem, which was arguably small, but I ballooned into something bigger. But while I do think Sarah Lynn is still a victim and a well-written character, because there's no such thing as a perfect victim, and what BoJack did was awful, even if the last season kind of retconned it, I do hate how many people ignore this stuff. Again, there is no such thing as a perfect victim, but I just feel like even the show, does it. Sorry, me thing. I always like to take a middle ground approach. The reason I bring this up is to some degree, I feel like people also do this with Nurse Bendy. And no, I'm not trying to compare traumas. We're not playing trauma poker or saying one person has a worse life than the other. I'm just comparing how they're judged by their respective fan bases. It's like chocolate ice cream versus vanilla ice cream for me. I hate when people boil Nurse Bendy down to simply the episode alone, which to some degree I do get. Since chances are, even if you don't watch the show, you probably watched that one episode. I mean, that was the first episode I watched, and you probably think her entire character is being a victim and nothing anything else, when the truth is a lot more sad. The whole point of that episode was that Nurse Bendy, up to that point, wasn't seen as a victim. She was just seen as a regular character who had a funny relationship with her boss. Somebody too stupid who only got her job because of her good looks. And considering the town medical staff almost let a patient die because he had a scar shaped like Jesus, is her being a school nurse really that far-fetched? Alone was supposed to show us how wrong we were, how upset she actually was with her life, and how she hated how every man she slept with treated her the same way. And once you rewatch and look deeper, you notice all the signs that her life is worse than she lets on, or she probably wants to acknowledge. However, by boiling her down to just a victim, you forget that her story didn't end in tragedy. Unlike Sarah Lynn, that's the only good thing you could say. If anything, she waited 12 years, and patience is a virtue. I mean, come on, it worked for Abraham and Sarah. We're not going to talk about how they pulled a handmaid's tale with their maidservant, right? Let me introduce you to Joe's second opinion sin.
Hey, Orel, the reviews are in. This movie gets 2.5. Ooh.
Let me read the line.
And here they are. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Throughout the show, Joe is one of Orel's friends, a term I use loosely, because he's a bully who frequently causes problems for the other kids. It's just a case of Orel being too nice to notice or correct him, everybody else being afraid of him, and TV being the way it is. Where, in TV world, you'd all be friends. In real life, yeah, nobody would want to deal with Joe. The episode Dumb reveals that Joe acts out because he wants attention, as in, he doesn't get it at home, and he has some issues that desperately need addressing. Joe turns out to have a horrible home life. There's his father, who is quite elderly. Remember, Joe is 12, and he has dementia and arthritis, so he can't remember anything.
I got off my rocker for a second and had to sit right back down. Pesky arthritis.
'Cause you're old.
And his sister, who raises him and takes care of their father, Sheila. Remember the secretary with the voice from earlier?
Yes, Father, you know it is.
It didn't sound familiar.
Wow, I ask you guys to remember so much in these videos, don't I? I wonder if you actually do. Just saying. I know most of you probably aren't actively watching the video. You're doing other stuff, like washing the dishes, or working on art projects, or working on cosplays, or driving, or working at your job, or trying to fall asleep, or doing chores, or eating, or I think I ran the gamut, didn't I? Recently, Joe was in the school play, which, if you need more reason to watch the show, they have a whole song about hating on Jesus, and it's so catchy that Orel gets the whole congregation to sing it at Sunday services. And he finds that none of his family members came to see him. His father forgot because he's old, and Sheila was stuck, likely either working and or taking care of her dad.
Gee, you're always old. I sure hope I don't take after you. Boy, I'd hate to be old all the time.
You won't be.
Now, I know this is a Nurse Bendy video, but I do want to take a second to discuss Sheila. She intrigues me, and she kind of reminds me of a parallel of Nurse Bendy. See, Sheila is implied to be around the same age as Nurse Bendy. Heck, some fans theorize the two used to be friends, which gets worse, considering how she likely knows damn well what her dad did to Nurse Bendy, so maybe that was how we got close, which is horrific! And much like Nurse Bendy, it's implied that because of the religious viewpoints on women in the town, that she's trapped herself. Trapped taking care of one man who will never thank her for it because he just can't remember, and for her brother. When we see that she wants to have a family too. She wants a husband and she wants kids, but she has other reasons for not getting it. Because she's supposedly ugly, and she's also infertile. She just can't.
I'm no one's mom.
'Cause you're ugly.
Because I'm barren.
Then why aren't you married?
That could be because I'm ugly.
Or because you have an ugly voice.
Could also be that.
Plus, Moralton is very religious. I doubt IVF, surrogacy, or even adoption are like things in this town. I mean, speaking of adoption, there was one episode where Orel adopted a dog, and because the dog was getting slightly more attention, rather than just having him give it away, they insisted he had to kill it! Imagine that before a baby! Remember, Reverend Putty said in Alone that the greatest thing a woman can do is provide her husband with offspring.
But even though your current duties may be a little on the trivial side, at least most of you finally carried out your most important duty and gave birth to your husband's offspring.
So, she just misses the mark. She could take care of a man, but she can't make him happy. Plus, she's also ugly. Which, no, I don't really think she's ugly. She doesn't look ugly to me, but you know what I mean. But these are reasons outside of her control, and because of her religious community, she has no way of fixing them. I've also seen a few people comment there might be a reason she is barren and has a deep voice. Like, she has PCOS. And I'm 100% behind that. Like, it's tragic. Again, she can't control it. And it's not her fault. Nobody will be with Nurse Bendy for her sordid past, but nobody will be with Sheila because of who she is. Heck, we see that Sheila has to hide her natural voice from everybody but her immediate family, likely so she can try to fit in.
Second opinion, Sun residents. Oh, hello, Nurse Bendy.
And she works as a secretary, another stereotypically female job, which, kind of like being a nurse, stereotypically secretaries sleep with their bosses, and that still isn't swaying men. I kind of want to know if Sheila was meant to have a bigger role in the rest of the series before it got canned, because she does desperately give me a vibe that she was gonna do something. Like, there's one part where she's doing a radio thing for her dad, and I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up becoming a radio personality. But yeah, anyways, Sheila's life is tragic, blah 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 blah. Let's talk about Joe. Joe always acts out and won't listen to her because, to quote him,
Joe, please don't cook that fish.
You can't tell me anything. You're not my mom. Ugh.
She is in loco parentis, Joe. I was basically raised by somebody who wasn't my mom. Think of Pharaoh's daughter in Moses, Joe. She could have let you drown. Now, in my previous moral oral video, I made the point that the kids likely all know deep down that their town is screwed up, but only Joe is willing to put it into words. And I see why here. Joe has a bad home life, and likely because of his behavior, and because nobody will discipline him the same way they do with Orel, he has practically zero friends. All the kids at school are afraid of him, and for good reason. But yeah, there's no competent adults around to stop him. With Sheila, it's likely because she knows the story of his creation, or because nothing he's saying is wrong, or because she just resigned that this is going to be her life, or really any sad reason, take your pick. But it's implied one reason Joe acts out is because his biggest fear is getting old. Joe, why did you steal my fear? As the only people he knows are old are all bad. His father just sits in a chair all day and can't get up and needs to be changed regularly by Sheila, while he thinks his mom died in childbirth because she was old.
My mom must have been old too, because she died of old age right in the middle of my childbirth. Bullseye!
She did?
Yeah, the dummy.
Yeah, Joe, she was the opposite of old. And while Sheila isn't exactly old, well, she appears it to Joe. Even the Adult Swim thing said she was like middle-aged, but considering that this town, I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of those people who looks older than she actually is. And we see many of Joe's habits are likely to ensure that he himself doesn't grow old, like eating sugary foods. I mean, his favorite dessert is ice cream candy cookie cake.
Look, Joe, I made your favorite dessert, ice cream candy cookie cake.
You're not my mom.
No joke, that actually sounds really good. Did Cooking with Fred tackle this yet? I need that recipe. Nurse Bendy calls up Sheila and asks about Joe.
Yes, my half-brother. In a play at the school, yes. Can I take a message?
Okay, I think it's no secret by now that Nurse Bendy is Joe's birth mom. Sheila had to specify Joe was her half-brother. Joe has a missing mom. We see that Joe's dad kind of looks guilty when Sheila mentions Nurse Bendy.
That was Nurse Bendy.
Nurse Bendy? Oh, Nurse Bendy.
And Sonny is filling in for somebody. Wait, so was Hubby supposed to be Joe's dad? Or is he supposed to be an idealized version of what she wants her perfect husband to be? Please be the latter, please. But I do like, and also don't like the detail that Sheila told Nurse Bendy that Joe was in a play at the school. Although I don't like how she lied and said that her dad was there watching Joe, because he clearly wasn't. And when Nurse Bendy sits down with Sonny and Hubby, she compliments Sonny on being in a play at the school.
Aw, Sonny, your play at the school was so wonderfully schoolful and playish. Gosh, you are getting so schooled.
Almost as if she's trying to reenact a fantasy in her head and pretending that Joe is Sonny. Or Sonny is Joe, you get my point. Elsewhere, Joe learns that Orel's father is taking him on a hunting trip, which makes him extremely jelly, since his own father can't even get out of a chair, let alone the house. So there's no way he'd have a father and son hunting trip, even if he wanted to.
It's funny.
Yeah.
You should try shooting the animals right in the legs. That way it'll be easier to punch them to death.
Wow, you sure look on the bright side of things.
Joe, you do not want to go on that hunting trip. But while you might be arguing that Joe shouldn't want Orel's life because we all know it's bad, well, I get it from his end. Even if Joe is perceptive, he's still a child who doesn't get every situation. He and Orel aren't close, and by and large, the townfolk think of Clay as this upstanding man, even if he does drink. And even if Clay becomes a bad person when he drinks, well, at least as far as Joe knows, he's being a good father and spending time with his son, since he's actually active and alive. To him, that's probably the bare minimum. So it's no wonder he gets jealous. Like, it kind of reminds me of Cartman and the rest of his friends. They all have bad dads, but as far as he knows, they all have dads, and that's more than he has. Plus, have you ever heard the saying that when your friends have good news, you're happy for like a millisecond, and then you start thinking of yourself and what this means to you, how it compares to you? Yeah, I see that here. Joe wants what Orel has and goes to Coach Stopframe, who turns out to be his uncle.
Hi, Uncle Danielle.
Oh, hey, little busy here, pal.
Why couldn't you be my dad and take me hunting instead of my stupid old dad?
I have questions. I get it. They needed a way for Joe to figure out who his biological mom was, but they just bring this up once and like never again. Is Danielle really his uncle, as in like his blood uncle, like Nurse Bendy's half-brother, like he's just too stupid to make the connection? Or is it a, I'm not really your uncle, but our families are close, or I'm kind of like your godfather type of situation? And why would Danielle never tell him? Did he just not care? Was he waiting until Joe was older, considering how he was conceived? Coach Stop Frame tells Joe his mother is alive and gives him her contact info, which I feel probably hurts more for Joe, like she was right there and nobody bothered to tell him. And Joe goes to the hospital to not confront her, just genuinely ask, like, hey, are you my mom?
How can I be your mom? I never even hit you.
The implications of that are disturbing. I mean, not as disturbing as what we've analyzed here, but disturbing in a different fashion. But does this imply she's okay with corporal punishment? Also, another thing. Me and most of the fan base are in agreement that Nurse Bendy and Joe were not written to be related, or that wasn't what they originally did when they wrote the pair. I can believe that here. As a writer, you don't have everything planned out. You mostly make it up as you go along. Or you kind of have an idea, just not like an, how do I get from point A to point B? I do like how they both talk super similar even before the reveal, especially their monotonous way of thinking. It kind of reminds me of Butthead. Like their way of talking sounds childish but hides a deeper secret. Or how Joe has to hand wave why they don't look the same.
Is that really your hair color?
Yeah. Can't you see? I just dyed it. I didn't like it black. It made me feel all bookwormy.
That actually explains some things. Blondes seem more attractive stereotypically, I hate to say, but because you can't win, they also have the stereotype of being stupid, which I don't think Nurse Bendy is. I just feel like she's not as quick to the punch as everyone. There's a difference between being stupid and being ignorant, and I feel she's more like ignorant, which is a compliment. It means she hasn't had the chance to learn all the wrong things. And another thing, she's blonde, and she continues to be blonde because a man told her to be, as if this wasn't her choice, or he put the thought in her head. Also, I went through a blonde phase during the earlier part of this decade, so I know what I'm talking about. But what I do like is how Joe 100% accepts Nurse Bendy as his mother and is protective of her, since he knows that he would have a better life with her, or at least her as an authority figure, and for the first time in his life, he's allowed to be vulnerable. He doesn't have to put walls up. With everything else, he'll cite it as stupid or dumb. And when Nurse Bendy agrees with that assertion that she's stupid and dumb, well, he's quick to reassure her that she isn't.
You don't seem dumb.
What? I don't?
Yeah. Believe me, I know dumb, and everyone sure is. But not you.
Oh.
Oh, that's kind of cute. Another thing I like is how Nurse Bendy 100% accepts Joe with open arms. It makes me wonder just how long she knew Joe was really her son. Some people say she subconsciously called, but I think she always knew. The way it's presented, Nurse Bendy had Joe at 12, which is disgusting and horrific. And because of her age, and likely to avoid a scandal, Joe's father, aka a total monster, took him and raised him without any input from her. Actually, you know what? Maybe it makes more sense why only Danielle was in his life. He's all about keeping dark secrets, and we know that Joe's dad was a doctor, and he's a respected member of the town. So I hate to say it, who is really gonna believe a kid like Nurse Bendy? Wow, this whole video, the implications get worse and worse. Nurse Bendy brings Joe to her apartment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first person to ever see it like that. That's quite the big leap, because we see that whenever she's with Principal Fakey, they're doing it like in his office, in her office, but never in her home. Like she keeps the two separate, so it's quite a big leap. She even offers him candy.
I eat adult candy though.
Ooh, yeah.
Take one.
You're young like me, so you must be my mom. Why couldn't you just live with us? This candy's good.
Oh, it's actually kind of sweet. Joe notices Sonny and makes the connection that Sonny is an idealized version of him, one that she can project onto him because he can't talk back or insult her, and she did it using little nuggets of information she got from Joe's life to make him, even his little habit of ugh.
He's really smart. He goes to school and is in the play at the school, and then some other stuff.
Big deal. So was I.
Yep, totally not Joe. I also like how he doesn't like Sonny because he thinks Sonny replaced him. But when his mom clarifies, like, no, I love you, I just wasn't allowed to raise you. It wasn't my choice, so I use Sonny as a substitute. He's on board.
Oh, Sonny's my... you, Joe.
I guess he is pretty great then.
Okay, that's cute. Also, if you want a darkly tragic yet funny scene, Hubby is tied down with a ton of duct tape so he doesn't get any ideas. Again, there's a reason people love stuffed animals. They both agree that Joe's dad sucks an egg, and Nurse Bendy even says,
your dad's a jerk.
Yeah, he's not so smart.
Somebody should take him to lesson school.
Oh, you're gonna be glad he did that, Nurse Bendy. Since Joe comes home, now armed with the truth of knowledge, and starts to viciously beat the crap out of his father for lying to him, for taking him away from his mother, and likely for a bunch of other stuff that Joe doesn't understand the ramifications of.
Come on, you know she's alive. I thought you were a big, stupid, brainy doctor, and you don't even know who's alive or who's dead. You! Oh, stupid!
Also, notice how when Joe is wailing on his dad, well, Sheila isn't scolding her brother. She just lays on the ground cleaning up the mess he made. Her silence speaks volumes, wouldn't you say? Maybe she wanted to do that to her dad for a long time too, because she's trapped. Or maybe she just thinks like Joe needs to get his feelings out, or he's not gonna listen to her. Or, this is my idea, maybe she knows that if the truth of Joe's parentage came out, well, who would believe Nurse Bendy? She would just be another soiled woman. Her dad can't remember the exact details, so he would never stand trial. His dementia would just clear him. Wait, would dementia be a sufficient defense in real life? And everybody thinks Nurse Bendy is an idiot, or worse in these situations, she likely did something to deserve it, or was a willing participant despite being 12 years old. Just saying they're too stupid to do math. So when you think about it, Joe, the fruit of this horrid affair, viciously beating him up for 12 years of pent-up rage and lies, yep, that's the best and likely only karma he is ever going to get, and she knows it. Strangely, he doesn't take his aggression out on Sheila, which I find cool. Perhaps on some level he recognizes they're both victims, or hey, she did care for him like a mother for 12 years. Before Nurse Bendy, she was his mom practically in all but name. For once, they sit down to have an honest talk, with Sheila saying that he legitimately can't remember the exact details, so that's why he thought Nurse Bendy died. Or maybe somebody told him Nurse Bendy died, probably Sheila or Danielle, so he wouldn't cause further problems, and he just ran with that idea. But Joe does ask, and probably the first time he's actually being polite to his sister.
Well, why didn't you tell me about her?
Why should I tell you anything? I'm not your mom.
I'd actually find this moment kind of sweet. It's her way of saying, Joe, you're better off with Nurse Bendy. Unlike me, you could actually leave this house, and you have your whole life ahead of you. Don't spend it with us. Plus, it's sweet how when she was cleaning him off, she left a little bit of frosting on his face for him to like lick off. And remember, she said she made his favorite dessert. I do wonder what happened to Sheila after he left though. Realistically, she's probably still stuck caring for her father, but does Joe keep her in his life? What about Nurse Bendy? I really want to know. It's like so tragic. Like, yes, Nurse Bendy is tragic, but I feel like people underestimate Sheila. Sheila herself is super tragic and nobody acknowledges it, not even the fan base. Like when I watched the episode Dumb for the first time, it wasn't Nurse Bendy that caught my attention, it was Sheila. Joe packs his things and goes to move in with Nurse Bendy, but finds somebody outside in the trash, Sonny, aka her version of Joe. He demands to know why, but as it turns out, she wasn't trying to get rid of Joe, she just wanted the real thing, and she wanted to take the big leap forward.
Oh, because he got old and his batteries ran out?
No, yours ran on.
What? Normally in these types of stories, for the purpose of status quo, they'll have the biological parent turn out to be a really horrible parent, so they can make some commentary on found family or liking the family you already have or whatever, which, don't get me wrong, I think is an important moral, but that's not the case here, and I love it. Plus, when you think about it, yes, Joe had Sheila, but his life still sucked. And even if you might argue Nurse Bendy might not be the best mom to Joe, well, it does take a village to raise a child. Like maybe she has a problem, or she doesn't know something about Joe like an allergy, she can always consult them. She can count on other people for help, like Sheila, Danielle, and another thing, I like that she only threw Sonny away and not Hubby. Like she isn't all that fine, but she's still taking baby steps. I like the fact she only threw Sonny away and not Hubby, and we see that it's working. Heck, maybe it's her saying like, maybe one day we'll have a real Hubby. In the final episode, her and Joe spend Christmas time ice skating together, and they seem to be having fun. So, Nurse Bendy, wow, she's a lot. In a good and bad way. She's written extremely well, and each time you rewatch the show, she gets a bit more tragic. But her life is horrible, and she's a victim of the town's religious propaganda, but she at least got a happy ending. And with the open-ended note the series ended on, I hope she still has a good ending. Also, this is just a me thing, but when you watch the show for the first time, did you always, like, confuse her with Dottie? Because I do that constantly. Anyhow, bye!